Hello, Bigfoot enthusiasts. Scott here from Squatch America.
And Hannah, the domestic schlubbus from the Patty Wagon.
Oh my
I
gosh.
made up that word.
You just made that word up.
I made that word up, schlubbus. You know
So,
why? Because, people are lucky I'm even wearing clothes today. I actually suggested that I could wear my pajamas for this video, but guess who, totally shut that idea down.
I don't know who. Anyway, so we're doing another watch party today because we are still in internet no man's land.
And guess what? We spent all sorts of money, cashola, on a signal booster. Guess what we've learned about signal boosters?
You can't boost something that's not there. Yeah.
There is like so little signal in this hole we're in. I've had dropped calls with clients. It's not just internet, it's phone.
Phone and everything.
It's like 4G's a joke.
Yeah,
So,
we've got like one half a bar. I mean, it's a really weak bar, and then with our signal booster, we get
three-quarters of
three
a bar.
quarters of a bar because you can't boost nothing from nothing. So
Nothing comes from nothing.
means
Nothing
nothing.
ever could. Anyway, I think we had two different
That's
songs.
a song. We did.
Nothing comes from nothing. Nothing never could.
Okay.
That's from The Sound of Music.
It is. So, what we were talking about today is the meme of the week.
Have you seen Sasquatch? Did I steal your thunder?
No, go ahead.
Have you seen Sasquatch? Have you been ridiculed? Had your sanity questioned? I can't read what's under there.
If so, you
Oh,
may
no,
be
I meant
enti-
under
oh,
there.
That's just nothing. That's
Oh,
who made
if
that.
so, you may be entitled to compensation. The law offices of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe.
Oh, that's an old joke. Dewey,
Yeah.
Cheatham, and Howe.
That's
Oh
in my
gosh.
Sims game, by the way.
Is it?
Yes,
It was
you
in
can be an office clerk at Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe.
Oh my gosh. Well, that was it was one of my lines actually in what was that? The Peril in the Paddock play.
Oh yes, that melodrama.
It was a melodrama, and I was playing the villain actually. It was kind of fun.
He looks great with a waxed mustache.
Okay, yeah. So, anywho, as you saw in the beginning of this, in the opening logo, I'm from the government, and I'm here to help.
Are we sure this is an appropriate topic for right now?
It is totally appropriate for
Or
right
totally inappropriate in the very best way?
now. Both. so,
Oh. You
We
know,
gotta-
I had someone today. I was messaging someone today. Sent her a little Facebook message, and it really helped her day. She says, "I'm having a hard time ignoring the world." I said, "Well, I pretty much ignore the world for a living." She says, "What a wonderful way or she said basically how awesome that was, and she wished she could do it. She wishes she could do it." And I said, "Well, it does take some self-discipline to ignore the world."
It does.
And so I don't know where that was going. It had something to do with what we're talking about.
It does.
Maybe you can make the tie-in for me because I've totally lost it.
Okay, so this has kind of been on my mind and in my heart for a long time, but also I had actually a couple ladies came by the campground and they wanted to talk to me about Bigfoot, of course, because that's what people do. And
We call that getting squatch-stracted.
yeah, we got Squatch distracted. Anyway, so I sat down and I was talking with them for a while, and they brought up the subject of does the government know about these things, and is the government covering it up? And and it's not the first time I've heard that. And we've all heard the story about the Mount St. Helens and the Bigfoot's being taken off the mountain by black helicopters and all that stuff. And we've talked about it a little bit here on our channel too. But I want to, should I say,
Force the issue.
Maybe was that forcing the issue, or fess up, or just explain my stance on this a little bit. And I want to tell you a little bit about where I'm coming from. Being a cultural anthropologist and working with the Native Americans, I've had to study a lot of American history. And I've had to study a lot of the treaties and things that the government has done to the Native American tribes over the years. And it hasn't been pretty.
No. Have they kept one agreement they ever made with them?
Well, the only one they have kept so far didn't happen until 1997. They passed, I think it was 97. I'll put a note if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing I'm trying to remember back years ago. But it was in 1997 they passed the Repatriation Act because a lot of Native Americans' skeletons were on display in museums.
Oh.
You know, from back in the, you know, 1800s and stuff like that. And, you know, that's somebody's grandma or somebody's grandpa. And so they passed a law.
Something slightly sacrilegious.
I know. That. And they passed a law, and I think in 97, don't quote me on that, but that these Native Americans had to be repatriated back to the tribes and buried properly and not displayed in a museum. Mm-hmm. And since then, even on an archaeological dig, I was working in California, we found a Native American skeleton. You know, we documented everything. We had, you know, we wanted to document on it, or had to document, or any of those words.
You did all the things.
We did all the things, and then we repatriated it back to the tribe where they did a proper burial, which is the way it should be. You know, we found somebody's ancestor that was missing, basically. So there's that. So this whole government conspiracy cover-up thing with Bigfoot is something that's kind of been on my heart for a long time. And here's the deal. You know, we've heard this phrase the last few years was about
before you continue, let's just disclaim that
the dog's going nuts and keeps jumping on us. And
yes. So you may see a really cute cameo of Daisy Mae, the adventure dog, being completely
inappropriate
and inconsiderate and all the puppy things. So
yeah.
She could come up here. So if all of a sudden you see me shaking, it's because she's pulling my arm out of the socket or something.
Yeah, exactly. So, so what I was saying was, over the past few years, you've heard this phrase. Let's just put it this way: draining the swamp. And it has been my experience, especially dealing with the government and Native American culture and being stuck between it, is.
And I have a thought about that.
I don't care what side you voted or whatever. It doesn't matter to me.
Or if you voted.
Because the swamp is the swamp. And it's swampy on both sides. I mean, that old phrase, like at the beginning, you know, I'm here from the government and I'm here to help. No, I'm here from the government and I'm here to cover things up and take your power away from you, and I'm going to have all the power, and I'm going to make sure that I control the people. That's what the government's always done in any government. Doesn't matter what government.
My thought about that was, and someone was talking to me about it the other day, you know, well, you know, all these changes are going to happen or they're not going to happen, and that's actually one reason why I ignore the world, because in the very end, I can only be responsible for what I do moment to moment. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing: if you look at all the treaties and agreements, and here she comes. There she is. I know. Say hi, no, or eat my hand or something. But the government has never kept an agreement they made with anyone.
Daisy.
She's really wired today because it's raining and drippy and horrible,
Yeah,
and we haven't had a decent walk. But if looking through history, our government has never kept an agreement they made with anyone. Why would they start now with us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we the people are the low people on the list as far as taking agreements.
Whoever you voted for, whoever you're cheering for, don't get your hopes up.
Yeah,
just don't, and then you won't be disappointed.
They're all the same.
Yep.
So,
look, I won. I got it.
Yay! Not for long. So, when it comes to Bigfoot, and I know this might sound a little weird, but I've had experiences with the government and Bigfoot. I have. Yep. On several different occasions, basically. So, what I'm about to tell you is just what happened to me, and this is kind of goes along with like anybody who has a Bigfoot story. There's a lot of people, see Bigfoot all the time, and there is a tremendous amount of them who will not even talk about it because of the stigma. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're crazy. You're like. So we're back. The dog knocked over the camera.
That was fun.
Yeah. So.
She was remorseful for about 4 seconds.
Not at all. So, we were talking about people being ashamed to share their stories because of the ridicule.
Tinfoil hats.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So.
Did they probe you with that too?
Here's my experience. And first of all, I want to tell everybody that your story's safe with us. I mean, we've heard it all, and we've never, ever, ever put anybody down for their experience, because it's their experience, right? Mm-hmm. So. And
we cannot, no human being has the right to look at someone's experience and say, well, that didn't happen, because you just don't know. It's like you can't look at someone and say, well, that feeling is invalid, that experience. You cannot do that. That is a physics impossibility. Mm-hmm.
So, with that said, do I think the government covers up Bigfoot? Yes.
Well, they cover up everything.
They cover everything up.
They cover up so much. The government, and I've worked for the government. I know. The government covers up so much they don't even know what they're covering up anymore.
I know. And it's crazy. Like, how does, like, just for instance, how does politicians who make on salary $200,000, or like say $200,000, I'm just throwing numbers out, say they make $200,000 a year on their salary as being president or whatever, okay? How does every one of them who go into government making $200,000 a year leave multi-millionaires?
Don't answer that out loud.
Yeah, don't. So here's what's happened.
I can tell you right now, as a government employee, I went in making, $30 an hour and left making $30 an hour.
Yes, you did. So.
And I did crappy, horrible work for $30 an hour. So don't look at me like, oh wow, you had plenty of money.
Yeah. So.
You don't even want to know what I did.
You don't even want to know. Anyway, so. So here's what's happened to me. We track Bigfoot through your reports. To be honest with you, that's exactly what we do. If we get a bunch of reports in one area at a certain time, that's why we go there. We use those reports to basically log the travel patterns or
the migration,
migratory patterns, if there is a migration, movement patterns or whatever. So we use that to know where to go. By doing so, that took us, or it took me like 20 years to actually see my first Bigfoot. Just doing that, having information and putting that information together. So what happened was we got a bunch of reports one time, and this was in the Blue Mountains of Eastern Oregon. I went to put a group together to go out with me. It took me 2 or 3 days to get that together because we had got 4 or 5 reports in the same area at the same time. So then we went to head out to that area, and when we got there, it had been burned. A controlled burn by the Forest Service. Wow. Unlucky, I guess, for us.
Very unlucky.
So we went back to work, getting reports, following up on them. We got a bunch of reports again in another area. I thought, okay, let's get our stuff together. So at that time I was working full time. So I'm at work and I can see the spot on the mountain off in the distance from the valley where I work. And I see smoke rising from that particular area of the mountain. Sure enough, controlled burn in that exact area. You know, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. So.
But that wasn't the end of it.
That wasn't the end of it. We get a bunch of reports one more time, almost 6 months later. Controlled burn in the winter in that area. Did I mention in the winter?
Yeah,
when does the Forest Service ever do a controlled burn in the winter?
When there is like 6 feet of snow on the ground. Because that's winter in the Blue Mountains.
It is. I mean, good luck even catching the trees on fire, but they did it.
I wonder what kind of noxious chemicals they used to make that happen.
I don't know. But interesting, huh? And also, what happened to me one time was I was being interviewed by a newspaper, and I happened to mention that I take people out in the woods with me in the newspaper article. Just the newspaper article came out. The very next day, I had 2 state police officers knocking on my door, informing me that I needed this license and this license and this license and
this insurance
and that insurance if I was going to take anybody in the woods with me. That's if I'm a outfitter, you need all that. But if I just wanted to take somebody in the woods with me and didn't charge them for that, that's a whole different case. But in this case, since we're looking for Bigfoot, I needed this and I needed this and I needed this insurance. I thought that was extremely interesting that they would show up at my door
like hours after the paper
came out, ready to go. So that's my story, and I'm sharing it. What are your thoughts on that?
You really want to know what my thoughts on that are? How many decades did I spend working for the government? Well, think about this. How hard is it to drain a real swamp? Go to Florida. Have they succeeded yet?
Not quite.
No. And everything in the swamp will kill you.
Including the skunk ape.
Yeah. They're mean. Swamp makes people mean.
Yeah.
So if it's hard enough to actually drain a swamp, how much harder is it to drain a swamp that's made up of people who hold power dearly?
Tough question.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, I worked long enough for the system to
So,
to know that the likelihood of that ever happening is pretty slim.
so with that said, all that stuff, what we just shared with you, um, shh, don't tell anybody. No, I'm just kidding. Um, know that your secrets are safe with us.
We'll believe you.
Know that we will listen to you. We will listen to your stories. We will listen to your reports, and we will take you seriously. And we will use that information wisely. No longer do I instantaneously share reports with anybody. Um, I used to ask people, is it okay if we share this? And I still do. I still ask that because some people aren't afraid to get the word out, which is fine. And that's wonderful. But I will uh, keep things close to the cuff or close to the
We're
heart.
going to keep our cards close to our chest.
That's the words I was looking for. We're going to keep our cards close to our chest.
Honestly, that's a skill that it took me working for the government to learn.
Yeah. It's something I learned working for the government.
Go figure.
Yeah. So, yeah, in case you don't know, I spent some time in the U.S. Army and a couple tours in Iraq. So I know a little bit about keeping stuff quiet. So.
And I just learned painfully.
Yeah. So we do that, and we are going to get to the bottom of this Bigfoot story. We know they exist. And that's not my quest. My quest is to discover how they live, and my next quest is how do we get the government to fess up.
He's such a dreamer.
I know. All we have to do is drain the swamp.
And so with that, just remember that our job is to investigate the unexplained.
Not to explain the uninvestigated.
As always, thank you so much for watching and supporting us. And remember to support us on Patreon, which you can with the instability and unreliability of YouTube anymore. We'll be developing our Patreon more and more, and so hopefully next week we will be in an internet better place.
We will.
And we can be live with you, live for real, so that you can see.
For realsies.
For realsies, so you can see our charming banter back and forth.
Yeah. And, with that,
keep it squatchy and
go out and find Bigfoot.
Bye.
Bye.